Hey guys, welcome back to Mobility Monday. Today I want to look at overhead shoulder motions, in particular shoulder flexion. So typically a lot of things that we do are down here. So we don't get up into this position enough to actually have good range of motion through the shoulder. A lot of times a couple muscles that get tight in particular are the lats, a muscle from the lumbar spine, thoracic spine, which goes up to the shoulder. Again, you know this big lat muscle right here. If we're in this position constantly and we don't get up overhead or stretch or do movement up in that position, we typically become shortened. So we can't get up all the way. You'll notice in a lot of situations, someone that tries to get up overhead, whether they're doing lifting or reaching for something in a cabinet, they'll tend to go and arch the back. The rib cage will flare when there is tightness or lack of anterior core stability here, anti-extension stability in the core. So that's one muscle in particular. The other one is actually the long head of the triceps. So typically weightlifters, power lifters, we'll see this a little more often. If you're getting into that front rack position here, as that tricep lengthens, it actually attaches to the scapula as well. So if you have a difficult time getting the elbows up here into that position, it could be a long head of the tricep restriction as well. So what we want to do just to test here is start into shoulder flexion. Back against the wall. This is called back to wall shoulder flexion. What we're going to do is try to actually completely flatten out the lumbar spine against the wall. We want to limit any kind of compensation that typically happens as we lift overhead. So as we flatten that back out, we're going to kind of get into a pelvic tilt position. Okay, try to lock down that rib cage, squeeze the abs to pull the ribs down. So now there's no space under my lumbar spine at all. What I'm going to do is lift the arms all the way up overhead, eyes are forward, and then see. So as I get up here to the end of the range, I, in particular, am pretty tight as I go overhead. So you can see as I get up here, there's still a few inches. It's hard. At the end, I have a tendency to try to open up the rib cage to flare here to get that last few degrees. So I'm someone that needs to work on these following steps to improve range of motion through the lats and the tricep. So try that out yourself. See if you can get up there with the flat back and test. Make sure there's no space. Lift the arms all the way up overhead to see if you have that restriction in flexion. You'll notice one, either you cannot get the arms all the way up overhead, or as you go up, you can watch my rib cage position here, you'll start to flare, the back will start to arch away from the wall, and that rib cage will really open up. So first thing we want to do, if that is the case, is some basic self-myofascial release through the lats. The foam roller is really a good place to start. So typically foam rolling, a lot of people are hitting everything through the lower extremity thoracic spine. We're not rolling through the lats, the teres major, all these muscles through the back and on the outside of the shoulder blade. So to get into that position, you want to kind of be right in the middle between laying on your back and your side. I'm going to lift my arm right up overhead here, and I'm going to scan through that area, again, just next to the shoulder blade and slightly down to the rib cage there, to see if there's any areas in particular that are pretty uncomfortable. So as I go right there, find a spot, I'm going to go and hold that spot and go ahead and move my arm through this overhead motion and then relax back down. So let's continue to scan there, see if there's anything else, move through. I can roll side to side slightly to kind of pin those down and to work into those muscles. Work overhead, which I think is the most important part, getting some length as you actively go through range of motion. So that's the first step there. You can also, if you feel like that is too uncomfortable, you can use a lacrosse ball, a trigger point ball up against the wall. Here you can offset the weight just a little bit by not pressing as hard into it. So find that area, again, find where the outside of that shoulder blade is. Put the lacrosse ball right in there. Go against the wall. Roll in through those. See where you find any areas that are tight or tender. And then from there we can do the same thing. So not as much weight here. Obviously my entire body weight isn't pressing in here compared to the foam roller. So this might be an easier step for a lot of you if you're just starting out with this method. So after we do that, what we want to do is go ahead and lengthen the last teres major long head of the triceps through its full range of motion to get up overhead. So what I have here is just a strength band, nothing too tight or restricted. So what I'm going to do is just come up here on the hand, back up tall, try to get into a good position. A lot of people get up here and then they sacrifice their form, their spine and rib cage position just to really crank back on the arm. What you want to do is keep everything locked down. So think abs, pull the rib cage down, back's nice and flat in that position, and the rib cage is directly above the hips. And what we're going to do is just walk forward slightly, trying to keep the position, arms up nice and high. The band is starting to pull me back posteriorly into flexion here, so I get some good length through that lat teres major. And if I need to, I can go ahead and as well throw the elbow through there. I want to put the palm of my hand on my back. I can use my other hand up overhead, again, without losing my position. So this is typically where I'm the tightest. So bring the elbow up overhead. Here we get a little more length or stretching through the long head of the triceps. So elbow bent compared to elbow straight overhead will change the difference between the triceps versus the lats and teres major. So once I've done that and I've worked on gaining some length through there, I can go ahead and retest just to see. Back flat, abs pull the rib cage down, get up overhead, and immediately I notice on that right side in particular, I can get up there. So I know this is an intervention that will help me specifically. Once I do that, I want to integrate that new length that I gained through those drills and stretches. So what I'm going to do is grab a kettlebell. I'm going to go up into the overhead kettlebell carry, and I'll lock that shoulder down in place. Same thing, everything's the same here. Abs, rib cage down, backs up tall, and I can go through the kettlebell overhead carries here, again, do a lap down, do a lap back to try to lock in that length. And a lot of times people are doing different interventions, flexibility and mobility, but they're not re-ingraining that new length or whatever they just gained into the nervous system. So go ahead and do some kind of movement that helps reinforce what you just gained. Will be very important moving forward. So that's it there. That's how you test overhead shoulder flexion. Again, looking at the lat, tricep, teres major. And try that out, see how you feel going overhead, see if you have any restriction, and then let me know if you have any questions. Thank you guys.